Hey everybody, John Brown here again, and I don't have Ian with me today. I've actually got my friend Steve. We're doing something a little bit different.
Yep, this is the Kickstarter version of Viticulture with the Tuscany expansion. It is going to be released to most of the Kickstarter backers probably in about a month or so, but Tuscany will be into wide release probably by the end of this year. I paid extra to get one of the first 10 copies off of Kickstarter. So this is one of the first editions that have come off the assembly line. I received this back on Friday. I figured we might as well help John out, and we're going to go through. I've already gone through and opened up all the shrink, and there's a lot of shrink in this game. Jamie's done so well with the components, and everything was packed very neatly and concisely, and we're going to go through not just the second edition of Viticulture, but we'll also go through Tuscany, and we'll just show you what we got. Alright, to start, the collector's edition box has a very wine crate feel to it.
Yes, it's quite impressive.
Yes, it's a product of Tuscany. And the one thing I noticed that, even though, yes, it is signed by Jamie, thank you, there's here the barcode and the collector's number is actually not a sticker that's on it. It's actually it's actually part of the printing itself, which I thought was a very nice touch. We'll show you what's in Viticulture, the strategic game of winemaking. Oh, thank you.
Yep.
This is the second edition that is just recently been released to retail. The box itself is very sturdy. The collector's edition outside case, about the same thickness as the box itself for Viticulture and Tuscany's. One thing that I noticed is the feel of the cover to Viticulture second edition versus first is this has more of a linen finish, whereas if you looked at the first edition of Viticulture, it's a smooth finish on the box itself. Jamie gave us 2 extra baggies, probably so that when everything's been sorted out between the 6 players, because the game does go 2 to 6 players, these are for extra storage components. Then right on top of that we have the rules sheet to Viticulture, updated for second edition rules. And then on top of that we have a summary and reference guide, and this was actually designed by a member of Board Game Geek, and Jamie incorporated this into the second printing. In my first copy I actually have a paper printing of that for a reference guide that I pass out to new players. This has actually been done in much nicer cardstock. Double-sided, telling you the rules concisely on one page. From there we actually have the new player mats, and not much has changed between the old player mat and the new one. One thing that I've noticed is that the actual, if you'll see there, you'll notice that each of the structures has a little structure component next to it. So you can say, okay, which one is the trellis, and which one is the large cellar, and which one is the cottage. Also, place to place your unplaced workers, and a mixing chart, so you don't always have to go to a new player. How do you make a blush wine, and how do you make a sparkling wine? And it's right here in this little space here that is underneath, the empty space on the vineyard. In the cellar where you can't place blush or sparkling, is right there.
So all the things I repeatedly ask you during a game are now available to me.
Yes.
Yes.
And if you are an expert in the game and want to see the artistic side, we still have the preserved. We don't have all the reminder text on the other side. The other thing I noticed, and you'll see there, if you compare between these, and I'll flip this around, each player gets the mat in their own color. For instance, using this is the one for the purple player, and the one down here is the one for the blue player. And each of the little structures has it in its own color. So I thought that was a very nice touch, and it goes through for all 6 players. And then moving on, we have the ever-famous Viticulture Lira in 1, 2, and 5, 2 sheets worth. They are still on the backs of them, and still says sponsored by, and has the original first edition Kickstarter backers that said, hey, I'm going to help the Kickstarter so I can get my name on some of the lira. And so I always thought it was interesting that they're on the backs of the coins. Underneath that is the famous Viticulture board, which is practically unchanged between the first edition and the second edition. They updated it somewhat. It says here, instead of crushed grapes and wine, now it says make up to 2 wine tokens, and the bonus in the middle is the +1, so you create a 3rd wine token. I think I've taught you how to do that under the second edition rules, even though it was an unofficial update. Well, it's now official with the second edition. Otherwise, the board is practically unchanged from this, between the first and the second edition. And as John was staring at the last minute, again, we have the artistic side without the reminder text on it. Underneath that, we have all the components, and now I have not gone through. This is how it looks when you actually take this out of the box the first time for the second edition. Instead of it all being pre-sorted by color, each structure has been given all 6. This is the large cellar, and someone went through and threw one for each of the 6 colors in there. Did the same for the windmill and the irrigation. They did, when you do a component check, make sure that when you get your grande workers, always make sure that the grapes of destiny and your migrant worker are also in this bag. It should be in this one. More structures for everybody. We have the cottage and the medium cellar. The trellis, which is still all 6. The oaks, I do like the oak as a structure a lot more than I did a few months ago, and I'll explain that a little later. And then we have the tasting room, the take a tour, gain a victory points. Moving on to the next set, we have the roosters to choose your wake-up time, the corks to handle your victory points, and your wine bottles to handle residual income. All of the workers, all of your normal workers are in one large bag in this particular set. The visitor cards, the wine order cards, the vine cards, they are all still the same. They did update some of the visitor cards for the second edition. Some of the visitors did get a slight update for balance issues in the second edition. And the last thing, and I thought this was a really neat touch, in the first edition, all the little glass beads came in a burlap bag, but they were also fairly large. If you had like a wine 2 and a wine 3 and a wine 4 next to each other, the same type, they tended to like bump into each other. Well, for this, they gave us slightly smaller glass beads, and they're actually a little more flat. That is a very nice touch to the second edition. Now, you're probably asking, what if I have the first edition already? Well, Jamie did go through, and he will make available shortly a update pack. And I thought it was interesting because it comes, the outer wrapper to the update pack is in bubble wrap. One minor quibble I had is the fact that the top of it is not really secured to it's stapled in 2 places, but I'm able to get at the pieces inside if I wanted to without having to actually open it irrevocably. It has the stickers that you can put on each of the player boards, place your available workers, the mixing chart, the 6 grande workers for the base game in second edition. There's a small pack of the updated visitor cards, and in the bottom, it's hard to see because of the bubble wrap, the new smaller wine tokens and grape tokens are also in this. So if you have the first edition, you don't have to go out and seek out a collector's edition for this. The other thing that you can get from Stonemaier to update first edition is Tuscany introduces a concept of metal coins. Jamie was really excited about these. Again, the bubble wrap for shipping, very nice touch. And these are, it's like, they're really in there. I mean, this is fairly thick plastic. So, no turning back now.
Let's watch my Zaya review. That was one of the things that at the very end I threw in. And there's metal coins.
And there's metal coins.
Good thing.
You hear that clinking noise. That is these are the 1 lira coins. So just take a look at that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's got some heft, and even I thought there also not just it's fairly the fact that not only is the size it feels like a penny almost, and we're actually a little heavier than a penny.
Yeah.
but it's very clear and concise, not just by the color, but also by the texture on it. So someone who might be slightly, might have a sight impediment might actually be able to play this using the metal coins, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah, that's actually the first thing I was going to comment on, the depth of like the printing on each coin. Yeah, they're not flat with a marking on it.
And wow, I'm impressed by the sounds of these. These are the 2 lira coins, and these have more of a silver finish compared to the 1 lira copper finish. The 5 lira, and these have more of a gold tone to them. That's got some, that definitely has got some heft to it. And as always, all the coins on the back have the little viticulture symbol with the grapes, which I thought was interesting.
All right, yeah, right here you can see, yeah, definitely, as I lay it flat, there's, whatever you want to call that, embossing or whatever, there's quite a bit of depth to it, and they definitely have some heft and feel to it. So not only are they metal coins, but they're definitely nice metal coins, because there can be a pretty big difference. So yeah, there's a close-up view of the 5 there.